Welcome here, Texas A&M at Florida preview presented by Prize Picks. Ari Wasserman. The biggest debate, question, discussion surrounding this game is who is Florida going to start at quarterback? As we record this, we think it's going to be Graham Mertz. We've heard Billy Napier say that Graham Mertz potentially could start, that they want to go with the plan that they've had since January, which would be start Graham Mertz. DJ Lagway plays some. We saw DJ Lagway start against Sanford last week because Graham Mertz was out with a concussion, and DJ Lagway had a monster game. I've said many times I think DJ Lagway should start this game, but if Graham Mertz can start, it sounds like that's what Billy Napier wants to do. Now, we are sponsored by Prize Picks. If you notice, there is no Florida quarterback on the Prize Picks board as of the time we're recording this on Wednesday.
I was hoping that Prize Picks was going to come in with a scoop there.
A little scoop there. No, they did not. So, but some of the other numbers are kind of up in the air, I feel like, because we don't know who the quarterback's going to be. So before we get going, Prize Picks is America's best daily fantasy game. You're picking players who are attached to numbers. So I'll give you an example. Florida receiver Eugene Wilson, 51.5 receiving yards. You decide if you think he's going to catch more than or less than that number. And I think the interesting thing in this particular game is that if DJ Lagway starts, I think you feel pretty confident in more than. And if Graham Mertz starts, then you're maybe not so confident. I'll give you an example. Eugene Wilson caught 6 passes for 141 yards against Sanford. And I get it was Sanford. But DJ Lagway is a very accurate quarterback who hits people in stride. That tends to allow for more yak yardage. Instead of you have to come back, catch the ball, you get tackled. If you catch it and you run, that's where the more than comes in. But we don't know which it's going to be. And the other part of it is it was only Sanford. We saw Florida against a really good defensive line in Miami, and the quarterbacks, be they Mertz or Lagway, were under pressure constantly. Texas A&M also has an excellent defensive line.
Yeah, it's going to be a pretty tough matchup for Florida, regardless of who's starting. But I do feel like I'm constantly being put in a pretzel this week, just having to consider the fact that Lagway's not going to play. And that is a very important piece of context that you would probably need to feel pretty good about any of the overs or more thans than on this list.
The other question is what about A&M? Because Connor Weigman looked fine against McNeese State. But this is the same conversation we just had about Florida. Connor Weigman looked awful against Notre Dame. 12 of 30, 100 yards, 2 picks. So which Connor Weigman are we going to see? His number for Prize Picks, 200.5 passing yards. And the way it works is you pick at least 2 squares. The more you pick, the higher the potential payout. So you have to decide, and you can mix different games. You can mix different sports. But like with Connor Weigman, if you think Connor Weigman's going more than 200.5, I think there's a good chance Texas A&M wins this game. The combination, I think, that would tell you Texas A&M won the game, if we're looking at the box score after the game, would be if Connor Weigman went more than 200.5 passing yards and their running back Le'Veon Moss went more than 70.5 rushing yards. Like if those two things hit, I think you'd be fairly confident that Texas A&M won.
Well, coming into the season, Andy, we didn't know what Texas A&M was going to be. And I think a large portion of the reason why we didn't know is because we didn't know what Connor Weigman was going to be.
Right.
And so far this season, he hasn't gotten to the point that we expected. Now, we're not talking about some guy that, was a middle of the road recruit that wasn't supposed to. We're talking about a stud multi-sport player that Texas A&M recruited their ass off to get. And he's supposed to come in and change this program. He's been injured. He's not very experienced as a result of it, and they're just hoping and praying that he will reach the potential. And if he is at his potential, 200.5 yards, more than should be automatic when we're talking about what he's supposed to be. And the funniest thing about this matchup, and I don't know I'm just going to say it, like, is DJ Lagway going to be on the other sideline next year? Like, this is it's like the funniest.
Well, right. DJ Lagway from Willis, Texas.
Yeah, he's like from right up the road there.
That has been the speculation that if Billy Napier were to get fired and DJ Lagway decided to go somewhere else, Texas A&M might be the place he would go.
Now, that's just an assumption. We're not. There's no.
Yeah,
it's just
we don't know that.
People are assuming that because of where he's from, and the crossroads between these two programs are both kind of in a very similar position where it's like Texas A&M is going to need to win, and they're going to need a quarterback to win.
Yeah.
And Florida's going to need to win, and they're going to need a quarterback to win. One's close to home, one's further from home. NIL is a big part. Like, this is a big storyline of the game that is just fun to think about.
Yeah. And Mike Elko, year one, like the Notre Dame game did not go the way he wanted. This would garner him a lot of favor as a first-year coach to go on the road, win his first SEC game. Billy Napier, meanwhile, needs this one because it gets harder from here in SEC play. He's got to, they're going to have to play Tennessee. They're going to have to play Georgia. They have to play LSU. They have to play Texas. They have to play Ole Miss.
Things are going terribly wrong for Florida right now. And if you look at the back half of their schedule, it is mortifying.
Yes. Yeah. It's terrifying. And so they've got to win now. Like, got to be able to win this one. Got to be able to win at Mississippi State next week. Got to be able to beat UCF. It starts here. The question is who starts. And so we don't know. And, you know, I feel like Lagway gives you a better chance. But again, we don't know how Florida's O-line will hold up against Texas A&M's D-line. Perhaps they would nullify all of the good things he can do too. The other thing I'm interested in is Florida's defensive line, which was a non-factor against Miami. Can they get pressure on Weigman? Can they stop the run against Texas A&M? Because they certainly couldn't do that against the Hurricanes. If they're better, Florida has a chance. If that's the same group we saw against Miami, it's going to be a long day.
We do tend to hyper-focus on the quarterback position, especially when there's a bunch of drama around that position like there is in this game, at least on one side of the football. But we can't get through this video and looking at Le'Veon Moss's 7.5 total there and not talk about how bad Florida's defense was in a game that was competitive. Like that is a major aspect of this. It's like, I don't care.
But Damian Martinez only rushed for 65 yards in that game.
Yeah.
He was running well, but they didn't really need him to do that much. And they were splitting time with Mark Fletcher. And remember, Cam Ward ran for quite a few yards in that game.
He did. Yeah. Well, also too, a lot of those were because he was sitting in the back knitting a sweater and then just rolling out and moving.
Yeah.
Up the field.
Basically,
so,
if Florida can't get pressure and they're playing man, then worry about Connor Weigman just taking off and running.
Well, also too, Cam Ward, I think it's a fair thing to say that he's probably a further along passer than Weigman.
But Weigman is a very good athlete. And if you let him run, he's going to run.
But but I'm saying the A&M offense may rely on their running back more than Miami had to in this game.
That's true.
That defensive line is not effective. So that is a major emphasis. We'll talk till we're blue in the face on Saturday night about what they did with their quarterback position, whether it was the right move and what it means for Billy Napier's future. But as it pertains to Prize Picks and these numbers, I have a lot of questions and viable concerns about Florida's defense, especially up front.
Yeah, I think that'll be the biggest question mark of the game. And if they are what they were against Miami, it's going to be a big problem for Florida. If you're playing Prize Picks, use the code STAPLES. Play $5, get $50 instantly, win or lose. Also, you're picking squares. You pick as few as 2. You can pick more. The more you pick, the higher the potential payout. If you are not so confident in a second square, well, hop over to the NFL side and grab Caleb Williams, the Bears quarterback, because every week in September, Prize Picks is giving you, it's essentially a free Caleb Williams square. It's 0.5 passing yards. If he throws for more than 0.5 passing yards, so if he throws for a yard, you win that square. So if there's one of these that you feel very confident about in the college football or in MMA or in the NFL elsewhere, you click that. You click Caleb Williams. You should be feeling very good about what you're about to play. Ari, I don't know how I feel about this game because I'm not sure I feel very good about Texas A&M or Florida.
Now you should feel entertained.
I feel very entertained because listen, I don't know what's going to happen in this game. I know there's going to be a very angry fan base coming out of it.
And that's the best.
One that is very, very relieved.
Isn't that the best?
It always
is.
Because
honestly, we have not spent enough time this year talking about the meltdown that is awaiting us in College Station too if things don't get better. Like,
so
we haven't spent zero time talking about that, but that's there.
Yeah. There will be a meltdown in College Station or Gainesville, guaranteed. The question is which one. Thanks so much for watching.
And don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel wherever you listen to your podcasts and leave a 5-star review.